Hi friends, I'm Felicia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk to you about the last 3 books that I read in August. So the first book that I want to talk about is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han, and that is a sequel to All the Boys I've Loved Before. And I read that on my Kindle, and yeah, I read the first book a couple months ago, and I really enjoy it. I like Jenny Han's writing, and I like Lara Jean as a character. I know I've heard people say that their biggest complaint is that they find Lara Jean to be really immature, but I, as a 16-year-old, was exactly that immature and naive. So I find Lara Jean to be really relatable. Like, I just completely relate to that. She definitely has more boys interested in her than I did when I was 16. But yeah, the thing that I really love the most about this series is that it does have that romance, but it is also a lot about family. Lara Jean's very close to her dad and her sisters, and I just really love that. I love seeing that in these books. Yeah, and I like that they kind of feel, the books, they have felt kind of just like moments in teenager dumb, I guess. Teenage dumb, being a teenager. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But it just feels like those collections of things that happen when you're 16, 17 years old, and I just really like that. I did not like the end. I was hoping that she would end up with someone else than what she did. The guy that she does end up with is not my favorite guy. And there's the last book coming out in spring, I think, next year, and so I'm looking forward to reading that. I hope that she's gonna end up with a guy that I want her to. I really enjoyed that book, and I look forward to reading the last one. The next book that I read, I listened to as an audiobook, and that was The Future of Us by Jay Asher and Carolyn Mackler. And I did not realize until I started reading this book that I have read a book by Carolyn Mackler before when I was like 15, and I read her book, The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things, I think is the title. And I read that book like several times because I used to just reread books over and over when I was that age. But yeah, so I didn't realize that was the same author, so I thought that was kind of cool. So this book is set in 1996, I think, around there. And so it's right at the time when computers and the internet and AOL were kind of a thing, and follows Josh and Emma, and they are best friends and next door neighbors. And one day Josh comes over with a AOL CD trial, if anybody remembers getting those, and he brings it over and they use it on Emma's computer, and they find out that they can access their future Facebook accounts, and this is many years before Facebook was even created. And so they can log on and see their status updates and profiles from 15 years in the future. And so, you know, if you are 17 and you can see yourself in the future, you're gonna look and see how you ended up when you're old. Although I'm very close to that age that they are in the future, which made me kind of sad. Yeah. So, and it just kind of follows them and seeing what they can all, what kind of trouble they can all get up to, and how they can change their futures by, with what they do now when the book is set. So, and when the book is taking place. So yeah, it was kind of interesting concept. I was a kid in the 90s, so I wasn't at that stage of life then, but I could still, I still remembered some of the things that they talked about. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. Yeah, I kind of felt nostalgic in that way. I didn't love the actual writing of the story. I found it to be kind of repetitive. I feel like if I had read it as opposed to listening to it as an audiobook, I don't know if I would have gotten that, but I just felt like it was just kind of, yeah, just stating the same thing over and over, and I was like, okay, I get it. Can we find a different way to say this, or a different way to move the plot forward, or whatever? I also had a lot of questions at the end. The ending was very open-ended, so if you don't like open-ended endings, then you might not like it. But I understand too that was exactly the point of the whole book. Life is kind of open-ended, and we all have decisions to make, and yeah. and life happens and stuff like that. So I understand that that's, you know, kind of was the point of the book. I mean, I had it on my Goodreads TBR for several years, so I'm glad that I finally read it, and it was pretty enjoyable, kind of interesting. I just wish that more of my questions had been answered. There were some things that came up in the book that just didn't have a resolution, so, you know, whatever. If that frustrates you, then just be aware. But I did enjoy it for the most part, you know, just besides my few complaints. The next book that I read was I read volumes 5 and 6 of Fruits Basket in an Ultimate bind up, which was the 3rd volume of the Ultimate bind up. Yeah, I don't have a lot of insight into each specific story because the stories, they kind of just meld together in my mind. Like, one book doesn't stand out from the next for me, so I kind of forget what is specific to each volume. But I do enjoy that each volume gives more development to the characters, and so I can see them growing as I'm going through the series. I'm only in volume 6 out of 20, so I still have ways to go, but I am enjoying it, and I will continue on with the series. The last thing that I want to talk about is that I read a short story, and that was The House of the Stone by Amy Ewing, and that is a short story that is in her in the Jewel series, or the Lone City series, I think is its actual name, but the Jewel series. And so it follows one of the side characters in the series, and it takes place parallel to the first book in the series, and it shows what life is like for this other girl that's friends with the main character, Violet, and this girl's name is Raven. I don't know why I didn't say that yet. But yeah, so it follows Raven and her house and her mistress. It did a really good job of emphasizing how messed up that society is, that the society that uses the surrogates. Yeah, and it shows kind of how she gets to be the way that she is in the second book. And so I don't know if I would read the story before the second book, but I think you could. But it would kind of spoil it a little bit for you. Yeah, it was like, I don't know, 60 pages or something, 70 pages. So it's just like a short ebook. Yeah, and I thought it was a good addition to the series. Not that you necessarily need to read it, but I think it gives some good insight there. Kind of fills in some gaps. Yeah, just read it if you're reading the series. Has anybody else read this series? Like, let me know if you've read anything in the Jewel series. I'm very curious to know. But yeah. So those are the books that I have to talk about today. So thank you very much for watching. You are all just wonderful, awesome people, and I just love your faces so much. And until next time, so long, and thanks for all the fish. Bye.